Happy Saturday. Happy Saturday, remnants out there. Oh my gosh, another Saturday, another beautiful day in the neighborhood. I am so happy that we are here once again. I am grateful for every one of you that tuned in. Oh my God, I have a treat today. I have a treat today. So this young lady, right? So I met her years ago, and I think I was what was I doing, like a a youth event at the nonprofit organization that you worked for. Remember downtown Newark?
Yes. Yep. It's
So
so we met at Covenant House. Yeah,
yeah,
it's a
okay.
job I work at in the weekends.
Oh, are you still there?
Yeah.
Okay. So it's Covenant House. I didn't know whether I could mention it or not. But I met you there. Who knew that saying hello and speaking to you that day, that just a short time later, a couple of years later, here you are. You are an author, Joy. Oh my goodness. Like I can't believe it. And not only are you an author, but your book, amazing. Like I'm trying to choose the right word to best describe this book. Oh my goodness. It is not, just as the title suggests, everyone, this is not your typical book on purpose. So before we even get into that, because I'm ready to dive into the book. But before we get into that, Joy, please introduce us. Tell all the other remnants out there who you are, who you were then, who you are now. Please let us get to know you just a little bit.
Yeah. So as you mentioned, my name is Joy Osahon. I am Nigerian, based in Newark, New Jersey. As you mentioned, I am an author, as well as an empowerment speaker and a faith blogger. So I have been blogging for over 5 years. I started off with blogging and was blogging for several years, and then pretty much the opportunity to speak opened up. And after that, it was just like, it's time to write a book. Um, I kind of knew I was supposed to write a book, but it was one of those things where I mentioned it years ago, probably during my undergrad years. And then after, I just never picked up that idea again. And
Mhm.
so I remember when I really felt God tell me, like, sis, you gotta write something. And I'm like, what am I gonna write? How, I don't know what topic. Like, I love to talk about relationships and dating,
Mhm.
but I felt like with the first one, I was like, no. So I'm slowly still embracing the fact that I'm an author. So when people say that, I
Awesome.
kind of squirm a little bit, because I'm still like, it's still very surreal for me. And so I do that, and then I also have a job. Like, most people think I do this full time, and I don't do it full time yet.
Yes.
So I work for a nonprofit organization. It's an IT prep program called Empower. And so I'm a social support manager. So I support young adults and veterans throughout a free
Mm.
IT prep program.
Nice,
And that's a little
nice.
bit about who I am.
So now we're gonna get into it. I am like so ready. So when reading this book, right? I I have received so much. Like, for I don't there's confirmation in the book, there is encouragement in the book, there is perspective shifting in this book. So what I decided to do, Joy, was to, out of the many gems in there, I decided to just pick a few, right? And to have you kind of expand on
Mhm.
them, right? So let me go right in because I don't want to waste any time. I want everything. So the first one, right?
Mhm.
You mentioned here, you said too often, right? Purpose is spoken about being a final destination when in reality it is a daily journey. Now, I was one of those people. The way I think about purpose, I think of it as like this being that we step into. You know what I mean? Like this is
Mhm.
something we are born with, it's at our core, and it's for us to kind of to it. But you say it's a daily journey. Can you expand on that?
Yeah, so it's interesting that well, first, I think it's important for people to understand like how do you define purpose, right? I think often people, a lot of people have a definition of purpose as it being this one thing, right?
Yeah.
As being rich and being well known and being, if you're popular or whatnot. And those are the various like those are the various outcomes that can happen in purpose. But purpose is it's not about you. It's never about you. It's about
Right.
other people. It's about serving people. So just as long as you're alive each and every day, your goal is to serve someone, and that serving can look like a multitude of things, rather it be giving somebody advice, rather it's giving somebody money, like if you see somebody homeless on the street, rather it's buying a random person coffee, maybe it's being in, like somebody needs you, like somebody needs to vent, and they need somebody who will just listen to them. And I think what happens is that purpose is painted as only being empowerment conferences, as only being
Hmm.
books, only being websites. But in reality, every day we are to live, we are to walk in purpose and walking intentionally, walking with the mindset to serve people. And life is a journey in and of itself. And so,
Right.
so too often people put themselves in this bubble and like, okay, I'm only walking in purpose when I have an event happening. No, in the process of you planning that event, you're interacting with people,
Right.
you are pouring into other people in the midst of the planning portion of it. And so I think when we look at it like every single day, no matter who we interact with, even if you're posting something on social media that's empowering, that's encouraging, it's a journey. And I think when people realize, like, wow, this is a journey, that means I'm put on this earth for a reason. And when we don't
Right.
look at it as a journey, we will tend to cut our life short. We tend
Mm.
to stop living and we just only exist. We only go through the basic, I wake up in the morning and I eat breakfast and I go to work and I come home and that's it,
Right.
right? So I think when people begin to look at it and look at it as an opportunity, like, wow, I'm alive to see today. God, what do you want me to do today? And I think when
Right.
you have that mindset, you realize, like, wow, this is really a journey. Like, it's not this glitz and glamorous thing. And so I've had to learn that, and I've had to realize that no matter what platform I'm given, whether it's social media, even if it's on my job, even when I'm going grocery shopping, or I can be at the gym, that's
Right.
purpose all around me. People all around me. People need things. People have needs. People need encouragement. And so I think when we begin to look at it like that, we tend to realize, like, every single person has an opportunity to walk in purpose, no matter the income, no matter the age. It doesn't matter if you're working or not. It
Right.
doesn't matter. Like, every single human being on this earth has purpose
Has
attached
a
to them.
purpose. Has a purpose. So it's almost like, what I'm getting, like what I'm hearing as you're talking, it's like, is it safe to say that, we're walking in this thing every day? Like you're saying, we get up, we make breakfast, we interact with the toll booth guy or girl, or we're buying lunch somewhere and we happen to say hello. It's, like, I feel like we walk in this thing every day. So all the hustle, like all the struggling that we're doing is just to basically pinpoint what it is that we're walking in. Like, does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Because it's so much bigger,
Absolutely.
right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that is key, I would say, right? So some people might be like, okay, if you go to a random, okay, like you mentioned with the toll booth, you're at the toll booth and you just want to say, you know what? I just want you to have an amazing day. You have no
Mhm.
idea the actual seed you have planted, right? Or if you compliment someone and if that person may have never received a compliment at all, that
Mm.
right there can change their entire life. Like, it can be as small, it can be as big. Even with little children, you can have that one child that is in
Yeah.
middle school or in elementary school that goes into the classroom and decides to write positive words and put it into everyone's desk. You know what? That child is walking in purpose because they're
Mm.
servicing someone else. And I think people often forget that, like, seeds are planted every day, just whether you believe it or
Yes,
not.
you
When you
do.
talk down on someone, you're planting a negative seed. When you are pouring into someone, complimenting somebody, you're planting a seed, and just really in which you have no idea how it's going to grow.
That's
And so I
true.
think when people begin to realize that, they realize, wow, I really do matter in this world. Like, someone is banking on me. Someone,
Mhm.
like, like there's people out here in this world that actually needs me. So
Yes, and that leads me to the next nugget that I saw in your book. Oftentimes, because of the surge, the blow up of social media, and the commercials that we see on TV, and all that, a lot of people tend to get it twisted in a sense that um you mentioned popularity. People get popularity
mhm.
confused with walking in purpose. What did you mean by that?
Yeah, so here's the like, I have a personal goal. Well, not goal, but I kind of call it my philosophy of, like, I have many philosophies. One of which is, it's not about popularity, it's about impact. You can now, in the state of our world, anyone who has a gift to encourage, to pour into people, to serve people, the world needs you right now more than
Yes,
ever before.
that's
And I
right.
think what happens is, like, with the pandemic, with everything going with race and all of these things, nobody cares about the popularity. I mean, granted, like, it looks nice, it is aesthetically pleasing, you can have a lot of likes, you can go viral, but who is it helping? Who
Right.
benefits from that, right? And so I think one of the things is that people often strive to be well known, to be well liked, to be popular, but in reality, what kind of impact have you had in a person's life? And an
That's
impact
true.
that actually is meaningful. Like, granted, like, I could be on my social media feed and I'm like, wow, I really love this outfit. I can
Mhm.
buy that outfit and because it's popular and stuff, and it makes me feel good, but it makes me feel good for that moment.
For
But
that
I
moment.
can, like, with even with your platform, which is geared towards empowerment, which is geared towards teaching, and when somebody's watching, when somebody's listening, when somebody's reading about the things that you're doing, it not only makes them feel good, it forces them to change their life. And
Yeah.
that's what happens most. There are things that are popular that makes people feel good, but it doesn't force them to change their life. It doesn't force them to change their ways. And that person can still feel great, but still have the same horrible character. And
Right.
I think what happens with social media, we often think that, wow, somebody has a large following, they must be out here doing things, and somebody who may have a low following isn't. But in reality, the person with the low following is the person in which there are even 5 people saying, wow, like, I changed my ways. I really decided to go back to school. I decided to take that leap of faith
Yeah.
because of the content that they put out there. And so, and even also when you're popular on social media, that doesn't mean that, even from a business perspective, that doesn't mean that you're making money. I
That's
think
true.
people think that too, with people are buying your items and buying your things. No, people like things. People like to watch stuff. People like to repost. And so I think even when it comes down to being in your purpose, when people need something, they are very slow to turn to someone that is popular and just that. They
Mhm.
turn to things that are impactful. And sometimes that impactful person, or if it's that impactful product or that book, may not be popular, but it sure
Right.
helps them.
Right. That was actually one of the areas that before we came on, I was telling you how your book, there were a lot of things in your book that also served as confirmation for me. And that was one of them. Just recently, I was struggling with the whole live conversation, because at one point my mind was, oh my gosh, look how many people are tuning in, or look how many people hit the heart button, double tap on Instagram, or, that, oh my God, it's not going anywhere. Whereas I had to be reminded of why I even started in the first place. It's not about popularity. And your book also mentioned that, by the way, that it's okay to feel that way, that we naturally, a lot of these things, we naturally, as human beings wrapped up in this flesh, we naturally want to feel accepted and popular, that to accept that, right? First of all, to basically accept it, but then to see how how to get past that feeling that may hinder popularity. And that's where, there was a comment you made. You mentioned how, when comparison creeps in, because I'm going to confess, I was doing that. I was looking at all the other, um, nonprofits out there, or people out there who are, well, who also empower women. And I'm like, oh my God, look what they're doing. But then not knowing that what it was doing was causing me to put what I'm doing down, as if, as if maybe God never spoke to me, or you're not doing anything. So when you talked about, comparison creeping in, you mentioned delay occurs. What were you going through anything that caused you to realize that? Where did that come from?
Yeah, I want to echo what you mentioned. I think we often make ourselves kind of feel like we're a robot, right? And like, I'm not supposed to compare myself. I'm not supposed to have those moments when I am, questioning what I'm doing. And it's natural, right? And I think it's one of those things like, we have to make that a norm, because if we don't, people are going to be like, there's something wrong with me, because
Right.
the fact that I'm here looking to the left and looking to the right. But when it comes down to comparison being a delay, absolutely, I experienced that. And I think people think I don't. There was a time in which a couple years ago, I took a break from blogging. It was a long break. It was about like, I usually do like a month break, like vacation. And I tell people, listen,
Mm.
I'm not doing nothing. I need me a break. I just want to live life and enjoy. But,
Right.
but a couple years ago, with the break was more probably about like 6 months.
Mhm.
And I was like, I want to just focus on changing up my website. It took longer than needed because I was looking at other people's website and I'm like, well,
Yeah.
God, like their website looks so much better. Like what's the point of me even doing this? Like I really was like, maybe I should stop. And because of that, I allowed what I could have been doing. I could have still been working on my like blogging. I stopped blogging for about 6 months,
Oh, mm,
just for the simple fact that I thought that everything I was doing was not good enough at all.
right.
And I spent so much time looking at what everyone else was doing and comparing that I stopped doing my own thing altogether. And that's very dangerous because yes, it's normal to compare yourself, but do not compare yourself to an extent where you stop doing everything that God has called you to do. Because yes, we know we serve a merciful God, but remember, He gives you a choice. So if
Mm,
you choose
mm,
not to continue, guess
come
what?
on.
He'll equip somebody else to do it. And so, like, that's what happens. People spend so much time comparing and quote unquote planning. They plan themselves to death where they don't do nothing with it at
Yeah.
all, because they're
Mm,
waiting for the perfect time to release something. In reality, if you're waiting for the perfect time just to release something, guess what? You'll be waiting for the rest of your life.
that's
And
true.
so it is one of those things, like I often struggle with that. Even for if somebody's watching this and they're struggling with it, especially with social media, as far as like comparing with the accounts you're comparing yourself to, you can either unfollow those accounts or you can mute those accounts, right? Out of sight, out of mind.
Right.
Um, in the book I mentioned, like you have to remind yourself of your worth because you can't depend on other people to do it. So I have something like even in my car, like
Mm,
I take the card where it has all these positive affirmations. So when I'm driving, I can be reminded like, oh, I'm a woman of purpose. Because oftentimes like we have to remind ourselves because we put in our subconsciousness, right? And we operate off of that anyways. And so I think it's important that if you have to do post-it notes around your house, right? If you're working on something and post-it notes saying that, you actually matter, so on and so forth, do that. Because if
yeah.
not, you can get so lost in comparing yourself to other that you forget about who you are.
Yes. Yes. That. Oh my gosh. Like that was healing. That was healing because that reading reading about that took me back to this dormant period that I experienced with Remnants of Red. And I like the whole live conversation that I'm doing right now. I should have done it years ago. Should I say I should have? But the idea came to me years ago. But because of fears, comparing myself, wondering what people are gonna think, am I good enough? Do I make sense? All of those things kept playing over and over again till I didn't even know when years passed by and I did nothing with Remnants of Red. Thank God for, the whole quarantine period because it really, really, I am one of those people that it sat me down to really think about things. And my purpose was one, the fact that I need to pick it back up was another. But when you mention comparison, that is key for everyone to really, really understand. Like, it's natural, yet it's not healthy.
Yeah.
When you feel these feelings, like you mentioned in your book, maybe you need a therapist to help you sort through those feelings. Maybe you need an accountability partner maybe you need to go get this book, right? To help you
Mm-hmm.
sort through whatever feelings you're going through, just so that you can bring them to the surface, right? And be able to deal with them. Not saying it's going to happen overnight, right? But at least, you know how they say, knowing is half the battle.
Yep.
Knowing these things, you're able to, deal with them. But then your book, you also mentioned in your book about when you see these flaws about yourself, you said we can use them as leverage. Now that
Yes.
was like one of those that like, whoa, I gotta hear about that. What were you talking about when you mentioned that?
Yeah, so I think flaws has always been a topic in which people count themselves out too often. People might say, I used to do this, or I'm still struggling with this. Why, like, why am I going to be the person to talk on this particular topic? But one of the things, I have another philosophy that I created that I live by is everything you are going through is someone else's how-to book. And that
Mhm,
includes your flaws. And I
mhm.
think what happens is that people think that they're not credible enough to begin to do certain things.
Yes.
When in reality, your flaws can often be your credibility
Mm,
that actually makes you a suitable person to be talking about a particular topic, right?
yeah, yeah.
Because people sometimes will listen to someone who messed up just like them. No one, when you think about it, no one really learns from that perfect person. Now, when that perfect person talks, it's beautiful. You're like, wow, you're a
Right.
great speaker, but like you don't move nothing. The only
Mm,
thing you move is the trees if it's windy outside, and that's it. Like no one, like no one is moved by it. And so our flaws, our mistakes, like if we, oftentimes our flaws and our mistakes is usually a result of pain, and there are certain pains we've experienced in life, or we're currently experiencing. And you mentioned healing. This is why healing is so important. In order for you to maximize your flaw and to use it in a way just in which it can be someone else's
mm,
how-to book, you have to heal first, or be on the path of healing. Because if not, like we all know the saying, somebody who's bleeding will be bleeding onto other people,
mhm,
right? And so I think it's one of those things. It's like being mindful of how you treat your pain. You can treat it in one or two ways, and I was talking about this in the book. You can treat it as a home. When you have a home,
yeah,
you are decking
comfortable.
it out. You ain't going nowhere. Like you
Right.
have your cup of
Comfortable.
coffee, right?
Mhm,
Like it's beautiful, and you have that home with the expectation of staying there for years. Now,
mhm,
people treat their pain or their flaws like that, and they're like, well, or more so their pain like that, right? And they're just like, I'm not going anywhere. This is it. That's it. But when you treat your pain like a hotel stay, you check in, you experience it, and then you eventually plan to check out.
Out.
You allow yourself to feel, and you're eventually going to grow through whatever it is you're going through. And
Mm-hmm.
so when it comes down to our flaws, some of our flaws are a result of our pains, is a result of the things we're going through. Then we also have our natural flaws, right? Our natural flaws is what makes us real, it makes us authentic.
I
It
like
makes us like someone where we can actually, like we feel like, yo, like she gets it. Right. And I think that's so important. There's so many people who are great, like they're great at what they do, but it's hard to find authentic people.
yes.
And authenticity will never go out of style. When
Come
people
on.
are in need of something, they're looking for the authentic person, because relatability is the key into which people will begin to adopt the tips and stuff you are sharing for people to begin to change their life and to actually and to change their mindsets and
Mm-hmm.
so on and so forth. So your flaws are not by mistakes, whether it's your freckle, rather it's your acne, whatever it
Whatever.
is,
Yes.
it makes you who you are.
Yes. Yes.
And there's
Yes.
only one you. Exactly.
Mm-hmm. Kimberly mentioned in the comments, she says people will listen to someone who is authentic in their truth, hence our flaws propelling us into a greater change and to heal. That is key.
Absolutely.
What I'm hearing is, it's a process, but don't be afraid of the process. Right?
Yes.
That's like, I think, like the sermons that we hear about the olive oil and the diamond in the rough and the gold and how it begins and how it comes to become gold. Like that stuff is real. It's a process. And let me throw in there. People know who's authentic. Like
Yep.
there's something with the subconscious or our spirits,
Yeah.
it connects with what's real. So if you're not real, like you sound like all the charismatic people, yeah, you sound good, but like you mentioned earlier, to have that impact, to have that true
Mhm.
impact, you have to be authentic. And with that is a process. Don't be afraid of the process. Go
Yes.
through the process. Go through I remember hearing that myself. Don't be afraid of the pain. Go through the pain. Go, because within that pain, within that fire, that's what yields that authenticity that everyone needs in these times. Oh my goodness. And the blueprint. You mentioned blueprint. You mentioned, our story being a story for others. Like all these things that I'm hearing, it's like, please, people, just be you. Be you. Don't be afraid to be you. And don't be afraid to go through the processes that are presented to you in life in order to make you who, the person who will be, that story for someone else. The whole book, Joy, like what led up to it? Was there an experience? Was because all these nuggets, these are authentic nuggets, okay? They didn't just come out of another self-help book. So now as I'm reading, I'm wondering, like, what was Joy going through that brought all this out in the book?
So one of the things I am so unashamed to say, all shout outs to God. Literally, like when I tell people all the glory goes to God, I'm not just saying it because it sounds nice to say, or it's just like the cliche thing we've been taught to say. It's because I do feel like everything that I wrote was from God. Even in the process of writing it, there were so many times where I'm like, God, I don't even want to. I'm good. I don't want to write this anymore. I really think that there are other people that are more capable of writing something about this.
Mhm.
And God's like, yeah, that sounds cute, Joy. I'm still gonna have you do it. And so it was really God who really led the path. And one of the things is like he started to bring to light all of the things I've experienced, even when it came down to finding purpose, right? Like I realized like there was a time and even when it comes to pain, like what even made me start blogging was because of a breakup. And
Mm.
it was in the
That'll
midst
do it.
of that Yup.
Gotta do it.
And mind you, like God will have to remove some people out of your life in order for you
Come
to
on.
accelerate in your
Come
true
on.
identity. And I
Come
think
on.
that's what happens with a lot of women. Like, just that's why, and I mentioned this in the book, you have to be careful who you're with. And especially for
Yes.
singles, you may have certain ideas you want to do, certain things you want to do. And there's sometimes God's like, it's a great idea. I want you to do it, but you can't be with this person that you're with. A lot of the
Mm.
times and I'm definitely going off topic, but and I feel like I need to say it, a lot of the times we will be praying to God for something to happen when he needs something to break off from you first
Come
in order
on.
for it to happen,
Come
right?
on.
And so like looking back, I'm like, I never thought about purpose. I've always knew, like I knew about purpose. It was after my relationship had ended, and my relationship ended almost 7 years ago, and the topic of purpose was not popular. And I remember
Right.
dealing with the pressure of trying to figure it out, crying about it, and all of these sorts. And so I realized, like, I'm writing this book in such a way that I would have needed it. It was 7 years ago after my breakup. This
That's
would have been
good.
something that I really needed. And a lot of the times people fight with God when there are certain things happening in their lives, when they have no idea, it actually positions them to be used. Like everyone said, God use me. But do you understand, when you say that, you are
Uh,
giving him full permission to put you in a position to
mm,
get hurt, to get your heart broken. So
uh,
people often look at like people who are walking in their purpose like, wow, you're doing amazing. But they don't even understand that when it comes out to authenticity, there's a certain breaking that has to happen. That person who is writing certain things have had to deal with the level of pain, have had to
mm.
deal with level of testing, have had to get their
Woo,
spirits
girl.
broken certain many, many, many times. And like that's why you have people who are good at what they do, and then there's people who are anointed to do the things that they're doing.
There you
And
go.
those ones who are anointed to do it,
Anointing
there's a
makes a
certain
difference.
process that they've had to deal with. And I think that's when people have to really understand, like, that's just sometimes it's one of the things like you can't even really avoid. So when it came down to writing the book, it was just a culmination of everything, like
Mm.
bringing to light, like, okay, man, I remember when I was applying to a job when I used to work in the Bronx, and I went through all levels of the interview. Like I met with the executive director and he was like, I can't wait to have you on the team. They ghosted me. And like dealing with the constant rejection, looking back, I was like, wait, that is now in my book. Realizing like everything I had to deal with is now in my book. And it's like our experiences. When I tell people everything you're going through is somebody's how-to book, the book in your hand was my how-to book based off of the experiences and just dealing with the whole. I was so busy finding my purpose that I forgot to live an intentional life. Sorry, that's like a whole mouthful of what I
No,
said.
no, because that's the whole point of the conversation, and what I hope to happen in the conversation, that things that need to be said, are said.
Yeah.
And like these things help build you. Like we can't run away from it. We cannot. Like I love how you mentioned, a lot of us, we pray certain prayers and we don't realize what we're praying. We choose the words that we say to him, to ask him, right? But we don't get to choose how that prayer gets answered. So
Yep.
for those, okay, for those who are saying, God, use me, for those who are saying, Lord, let your will be done, let me tell you, those are things that you are supposed to be saying. But at the same time, I'm going to tell you to embrace yourself. Like, embrace, like, just look forward to waking up every morning and seeing what's in store, because, like you said, there are things that will happen, for you to become who you were created to be. Even in the daily, like, right, we talked about
Mm-hmm.
purpose being a daily walk. Like, even in the daily, you have to be ready, you know
Yes.
and truth be told, a lot of this stuff that we have to do, it's us that does it. It's
Yep.
us partnering with God and saying, okay, Lord, give me the instructions and I'll do it. And part of that, you mentioned relationships, you mentioned, being entangled with people or things, you know, you have to choose. You have to choose what means more to you. Like this flat, it came to a point where God flat out was like, listen, does this mean more to you or does
Mm,
this mean more to you? Period. Does
yeah.
like I know you have fears. I know you want to quit. I know you want to throw in the towel. I know you love this person, right? But what I'm saying to you, in order for you to get here, I need you to choose this. So now I'm putting it before you. What do you want? Do you want, like he said in like, do you want life or do you want death? Right? Do you want life to your purpose or do you want death to your purpose?
Yep.
So these are the things that I am hoping, Joy is hoping, why she even wrote the book, why I even have the conversations is for everyone to at least take what you hear and just put it into perspective. Just think about it. Just think about it. And when it comes to purpose, I want to round up with this because this is very important. This is actually one of those things, another nugget in your book that kind of confirms some things for me. And I mentioned about how I wanted to quit. Like even coming onto this conversation, and I'm sure after this conversation is over, that thought it'll pop up like, what are you doing? You should quit. Why you girl, how long do you think? Right?
Yeah.
So I want to end with this. In your book, you said the journey leading towards the discovery and walking in your purpose can seem like a roller coaster, which is true. Okay. One
Mhm.
minute things are going smoothly, and the next thing you know, chaos is knocking on your front door. The sad reality is that those instances cannot be avoided, and it has prevented many from continuing in their gift because a smoke signal has served as a false confirmation to quit. Please take us home with that one. Please.
I
How do we not quit, Joy? How do we not quit? How do I not quit, Joy? Please.
One of the things I've been asking God is give me the grace to do whatever it is you want me to do. I think what happens is we often quit because we've only really relied on ourselves, or a lot of us look to human beings as the person to do it for us, and we forget to look to God. In any and everything that we do or we want to do, we have to ask God for the grace, right? We have to ask God to grace us in our business, to grace us in whatever it is that we're operating in, because we should be really in a situation where people will look at what you're doing just and again, we cannot avoid the hardships, but people will look at what you're doing in the sense where they'll be like, God's hand had to be on top of that, because
Mm,
there is no way people can usually get away with that, or there is no way I could have done that, or there is no way, based off of what I know about that particular person, they could have done that. And so when people say I give all the glory to God, it's
mm,
because they couldn't do it on their own. And what happens is that people have been so dependent on doing things on their own that whenever there's hardships, they quit and they throw in the towel. And when they do, that's why it's important for people to go back to their why and ask themselves, why am I doing this? If your why is not strong enough, you're going to allow yourself to
come
stop
on.
at every single thing. And in everything
Yeah.
going on in this world, so many people have started all of these new things. And I remember telling this girl that I mentor, I told her this. I was like, don't get intimidated, because come November or December, those people are going to stop. And
Mm,
the people who end up stopping is because their why was never strong enough. Their
mm,
why was not built on the grace of God. That is why your foundation of starting something is so important. Even if your foundation is on pain, because the foundation, everything I'm doing, that book was produced based off of pain.
yeah.
That book would have never came out if that man didn't break up with me. Because sometimes when God tells you something is
Mm,
over, we will reject it, and God will have people reject you in order to be in the position in which you're supposed to be. And so really, in order to not allow any of the hardship stop you, you have to ask God for grace. And you have to, and I actually posted this to kind of close this out on my Instagram page, which I have on, which is Speak with Joy, is whatever it is you're doing, you have to cover it. You have to cover that thing in the blood of Jesus. Like, some people might be like, that's religious. I don't care. But that religious act is the same thing that's going to keep you going. Because remember, the enemy, and especially when you're doing something, sometimes the enemy will throw things because he wants you to stop. When God wants those things thrown at you to prune you. And so that's why you have to cover if you're doing a podcast, if you have a blog, if you have a book, you have to cover that in the blood of Jesus. Mm-hmm. Because if you don't, with the smoke signals, you're gonna be like, God, that was from you. And it could be like, yes, it was for me, but it wasn't meant for you to stop. It was supposed to bring you to another level and to be able to reach out to a different population in which many people aren't qualified, but the hardships I'm bringing you through are the very things that's going to suit you. It's going to suit you for that, because we want to get to new levels. We want to reach more people, but we have to be able to make sure that it actually lasts. And sometimes the best way for things to actually last is for you to endure a training season. And so I think it's important that people ask God to grace them in whatever it is that they're doing, cover it, whatever that it is, in the blood of Jesus. And you want to make sure you always go back to your why. Yes. And if your why isn't strong enough, it's okay to change up your why, but you want to make sure you are deeply grounded in that. Because if you don't know why you're doing it, when you deal with something, you're going to be like, well, why not? I'm good. Bye.
The storms will definitely come. Like, yes. And it doesn't necessarily have to be like a whole, like, it doesn't have to be like, oh, financial, you go broke, or you're no, sometimes or a lot of times, right, the battle is here. It's in here. The thoughts that come to threaten what you do, the thoughts that come to, how you handle the breakup, how you handle the pain, that's the real battle. That's where you really find out, that's where the survival of the fittest is found out, how we react to these things. And Joy, I cannot thank you enough, for, first of all, saying yes to God, right? Saying yes to your purpose. Because like you said earlier, like we have a choice. We have a choice whether or not, it's not like God is holding a gun to your head and he's saying, you're going to do this. No, he's not. He's presenting things to you. He is bringing you through processes to discover who you are. And at the end of the day, you have the choice whether or not you want to, go with the false comparison versus who you really are, and I'm glad you mentioned that in your book, because it's very important for us to be okay with who we are. Our purpose is in that. The impact is in that. The people who needs to, meet you, it's in that. So please do not be afraid of the process. Do not quit. Do not quit. Please do not quit. Every day that you get up, how I end the shows, Joy, I tell people to go out there and find someone to love on, because it's a matter of life and death. It could be a matter of life and death. So, I am going to close with just that. Please, ladies, remnants, men, children, go and get this book. The information is on the page. You can reach Joy. Joy, can you please tell us again, how can we hear more from you and get more from you?
Yes, so you can follow me on Instagram, Speak with Joy. For those of you guys who don't have Instagram, you have Facebook, it's Speaking with Joy, or you can check out my website, which is www.speakwithjoy.net.
And on that note, again, thank you so much, Joy. Thank you for all the remnants that tune in. Danielle, I see you. Thank you. Kimberly, I see you. Thank you. Who else do we have out here? Yes. So all you remnants out there, go ahead and enjoy the rest of your Saturday. And again, please, like I always say, please find. So we talked about purpose, y'all. We talked about how purpose cannot be fulfilled unless we're serving others. The whole point of purpose is to serve others. So please go out there, find someone to love on, because it could be a matter of life and death. And don't forget to share the videos, please, 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 please. I know that there is someone out there that needs to hear what Joy said. I know that there are people out there that needs to get the information to get the book. So please share the conversation. And on that note, see you all next
Bye,
Saturday.
everyone.